And we're back with more exciting adventures of the Incredible Hoax. I am Chris.
I am Mark.
I'm surprising you on camera with a topic. He doesn't know what this is. I thought of it earlier and I forgot about it, and now I thought of it again. Let me get my phone before it screws up the audio. So, we did a show about the prequels. We've talked about this a little bit before, but I don't know if we've ever done on camera. I personally feel the prequels could have been better received had they happened in a different era. One of the unfortunate things that happened with the prequels, it had the great misfortune of happening alongside The Matrix, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and the birth of Harry Potter, and for that matter, even the birth of a revisionist in comic book movies with Spider-Man and to a lesser degree X-Men.
Okay.
But the big three, I would say, would be Matrix, Lord of the Rings, and Harry Potter.
Okay.
You take those prequels and introduce them in a different era, would they have suffered the same fate and judgment that they suffered now? Lord of the Rings was revolutionary in bringing fantasy film to a whole new respectability. They were
True.
each nominated for an Oscar. Well, I think only The Godfather can match that for each trilogy be nominated for Best Picture. It actually won Best Picture for the third part of a trilogy. That's never happened, where the third episode gets Best Picture Oscar. Mm-hmm. So, prequels introduced in mid-90s to suffer the same fate. Matrix revolutionized special effects. Won Best Oscar, up against Phantom Menace and all the power of Lucasfilm, and it beat it for Best Special Effects. None of the prequels won Best Special Effects Oscar. They all lost to either Matrix or I think Lord of the Rings, I believe. Do the prequels suffer the same judgment and wrath if introduced 10 years sooner?
Well, assuming they're made exactly the same in terms of what you're seeing
keep
on
everything
screen,
the same. You just not have it compete against those.
I think obviously they might have a crack at actually winning some of the technical awards if it's made 10 or 15 years earlier. I think that would be true.
Yeah, I think that's easy.
I think that would be kind of a given. And to me, I've always kind of maintained a good story is a good story, no matter, and if it's told well, it doesn't matter what year it came out. I've gone back, as you know, watched silent films, and or even films from the 30s, early talkies, if you will, and every once in a while you find a gem. You're like, wow, this is really good. I don't remember hearing about this film. This was really a good movie. And so I think good storytelling is somewhat timeless, but the prequels aren't good storytelling. So I think any era you put in, they might be appreciated more like for the visuals and technical marvel, but I don't know that the stories would ever be fully embraced because all three are flawed, just fundamentally. I'd have a hard time believing if somehow those movies were made like in the early 70s, before the actual original trilogy timeline, that people would give two shits about it, the Star Wars, because it was just I don't think it would probably have faded and gone the way of other sci-fi movies that kind of underperformed.
I think if they were released, say it's 87, the Phantom Menace came out, I think most people are like, what the fuck is this? It would be it doesn't, there's no interest in it outside of the context of which it was delivered.
Right.
That's the reason why you'll see the questions from time to time. People will ask, hey, what order do I watch the Star Wars movies in? I'm like, release, always release. Never in chronological. Never, ever read or watch the Star Wars movies. Watch them in release, because if you watch Phantom Menace first, you'll be like, And by the time you get to Revenge of the
Yeah.
Sith, you're like,
Yeah,
I mean,
I understand that I have a friend of a friend who had not ever seen them, and their recommendation was
Release.
was to go by release date.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I thought, well, that's pretty wise, because if you start them with something that a lot of people do say it's an inferior product, then you may be, by the second movie, going, if you're not into it, going, what's all the fuss about?
Yeah, without any context, the prequels
Yeah,
don't do it.
it's like, well, you don't have the context of what was like great and what became the legend, and why people care, and why people wanted more, and that's why they got the prequels. So anyway, yeah, that's a good recommendation.
Yeah, I think you take the prequels and you not, if for some reason the Lord of the Rings trilogy and Matrix and Harry Potter and the rest didn't come about and it just sort of owned its time, I think they would be better received. Not that they would be perfect, not that it would be considered classics or all times or anything like that, but they would have been better received. When you compare, because a lot of people at the time, when they saw Lord of the Rings, were like, that's what we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
That's the franchise of the now. Lord of the Rings is what Avengers is now. So Lord of the Rings was then. It was like, that's the movie we've been wanting.
Right.
And George Lucas was too little too late with his prequels.
Yeah.
When compared to particularly Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings was up here and the prequels were down here. You know? I think it was, I think he really did suffer in the fact that this timing just didn't work for him. Now, the argument is, I think all the Star Wars movies made more money than each of the Lord of the Rings movies. I believe that's accurate. I think only Attack of the Clones didn't make the most money in its year. I think Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith both made the most money for their year. I believe that's right. Don't hold me to that.
I think Phantom Menace was the only one that had that honor. Could be wrong, but that.
Let's look it up real quick. So you could make the argument that, well, Chris, they still won each year they were in.
Well, if I could, while you do that, if I could say that it's an interesting point you're bringing out, because if they had released this movie in the 90s.
Yeah, I'm right.
You are right about the...
2003 was Attack of the Clones, right?
2002.
Spider-Man. Phantom Menace won 99, and then 2005, Revenge of the Sith won the box office. So 2002 would have been Spider-Man. And yeah, Attack of the Clones is actually third behind Two Towers.
Okay.
And Spider-Man.
Okay, well. In the 90s, you make an interesting point. If it came out 6-8 years earlier, you had movies that were being made that were like fantasy or sci-fi, but they weren't very good. Like Johnny Mnemonic.
Yeah.
What was some others for that period? You had...
Well, that in the mid '90s, Terminator kind of set the standard. Terminator 2 rather set the standard.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of like trying to follow that,
right?
Total Recalls and all that kind of stuff. That was kind of the sci-fi fantasy of the mid '90s, and which kind of tried to be more R-rated, adult-ish, sort of, but still kind of cheesy in a way. You know?
Well, I think that's why when Independence Day came out, it was actually trying to put a lot of like quality into their idea, versus a movie like The Arrival with Charlie Sheen, which was done kind of lower budget. I mean, it kind of overperformed in a way. That film did, and over.
It wasn't expected to do what it did.
Yeah, it kind of it exceeded expectations. David Toohey put that together and did a pretty good job, but. Still, it was for that genre. That was kind of what we had to expect. If you like sci-fi, this is what we're getting most of the time.
Yeah.
And or Johnny Mnemonic, and we're like, oh, okay. But Independence Day came along. They put a lot of effort and money and old school model work, like when the White House blows up and things like that. So they were really trying to put some effort into it. I mean, even the alien mothership at the end.
Jurassic Park was mid-90s. Yeah.
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 There's one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have fared well. I think the prequels would have fared well mid-90s. It would have fit right in that.
Yeah, because if you compare that, what would you rather see? Johnny Mnemonic or Phantom Menace, of course. I mean, so I could see your argument take shape.
I just think that it being compared to its time, taking in its time, it just didn't hold the same value of the Lord of the Rings movies or the first Matrix, not the 2 and 3, no, but. And like I said, Spider-Man, people don't give the original Spider-Man enough credit. I mean, if it wasn't for the original Spider-Man, I don't know that you have the Spider Hero movies of the day, or the comic book hero movies of the day.
Mm-mm.
It helped really make it come back.
Yeah, I mean the
X-Men too.
The first X-Men did a lot to bring some
credibility
there, and then of course Sam Raimi's. That first Spider-Man, the first two are really good. Particularly that second one, I thought was particularly good. They seem to it's weird. They weren't that long ago, but they are kind of forgotten.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, because they've done rebooted it twice.
Yeah.
Very oddly.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting topic there on the prequels. What would happen on another time? Possibly they wouldn't be as looked down on or maybe judged harshly. I
feel they would.
I could see that.
I feel they would have been a lot more grace given, but their competition was really stiff.
but I mean, I could totally see it not making a difference for me. I think I've been fairly consistent. I mean, obviously, there's some movies when you watch when you're younger and you come later and in life and you appreciate more. But I think that goes for everybody. That's not unique to me.
I'll give you a perfect example of that, and then we'll wrap this up.
Okay.
The original Mad Max trilogy. I know Thunderdome is the one that kind of gets snickered at. Shit, I love that movie, especially as an adult now. I think that movie's great. I really do. I think that movie is great.
I enjoyed all. I enjoyed all three.
Thunderdome is always the one that gets made fun of and stuff.
Yeah, it does. I mean,
I think even like Temple of Doom is like the least. Well, before Crystal Skull, Temple of Doom was like the Indiana Jones movie didn't fit. That movie's fantastic. It's a great movie.
Yeah, that was one. That is kind of weird because when I was younger, I've always thought it was okay, but as I've gotten older, I actually appreciate it more.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Yeah. Final word. Final thought.
Final word. I think your argument that a different director going in there, that would have been intriguing. What director could you put in there that made those prequels
Fincher
work? Fincher would have been good. James Cameron, that would have been interesting because he was going to do the Spider-Man. Can you imagine what those Spider-Mans would have been? That would have been interesting.
I would give anything to see Fincher's prequel because I think Fincher would have added all those visual interesting layers. And he would have worked with the actor. Fincher's got some really good performances out of people. I mean, like Ben Affleck in any other movie. Ben Affleck with Fincher's pretty damn good. This is the guy that made Fight Club. Remember, so I would love to see Fincher's prequel. That would be my guy. I would put in there if I could go back in time.
Yeah, I really respect him a lot. So that would have been interesting.
He would have embraced all the digital alteration, and he would have embraced all that.
Hollywood was kind of in a transitional period.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people now I could say, but of course their popularity came along well after that time. So that would be a tougher one, I would have liked to seen Spielberg direct one, right in pre-production, go all the way through just one to see what he would have done with it.
Curiosity.
We'll never get our wish on that, but I would have really loved to have seen that.
Yeah.
So that's my kind of coulda, woulda pick.
All right. Well, shoulda, woulda, coulda. That's the name of this show. And with that, adieu.